Poland isn't playing around. It knows it may very well be the next name on Vladimir Putin's hit list, and it wants to be ready to defend itself if and when the need arises. So it's leaving nothing to chance, accelerating ahead of neighboring nations and leaving the European Union stunned with its proactive plan to stop Russia as early as 2026, an innovative anti-drone system that could render the Kremlin's Shahid swarms absolutely worthless. It's hardly surprising that Poland is eager to level up its defenses. While there's no clear evidence to suggest that Russia plans to invade Poland anytime soon, numerous analysts and experts across the globe have long harbored fears that Putin's plans to expand his sphere of influence extend far beyond Ukraine. There have been rumors and reports that the Russian leader eventually intends an attack on one or more NATO nations, which might include any of the 3 Baltic states as well as Poland itself. Invading any of those countries would be highly irrational, given that they're all part of the powerful NATO alliance and enjoy the protection of the world's largest and most powerful military force, the United States of America, along with several other major military powers like France, Germany, and the United Kingdom. However, Russia has proven that it doesn't always behave rationally, and Putin may see Poland as the next logical step in his long-term plan for European conquest. Like Lithuania, Poland sits in a strategic location with a long stretch of Baltic Sea coastline, a border with Belarus, one of Russia's closest allies, and also a stretch of border with the Russian exclave of Kaliningrad. Moscow might want to effectively bridge the gap between that exclave and the rest of Russia, taking control of the famous Suwalki Gap that sits between Belarus and Kaliningrad along the Poland-Lithuania border. It could also use the exclave to its advantage, launching attacks on Polish territory from Belarus to the east and Kaliningrad to the north, forcing Warsaw to divide its forces or risk complete capitulation at one front or the other. Russia may also have other plans in mind for Poland. Putin may be attracted to the idea of capturing parts of Poland to form some sort of buffer or security zone, separating Russia's regions from the major NATO nations of Western Europe, for example. Or he might intend to cut off Polish supply lines to Ukraine and the Baltic nations, making them easier targets to take over. Given his erratic decision-making and volatile personality, we can never truly know what's going through the Russian leader's mind. But Poland knows that it sits in a precarious position, and it needs to be ready to face up to the very real threat of a possible Russian invasion at some stage in the next few years. That's one of the reasons it's been doing so much to strengthen its defenses in recent times, leading the way in defense spending across Europe and even among all NATO nations, committing close to 5% of its GDP to military investment. Poland has also sought to upgrade its assets across the board, investing in world-class tanks, fighter jets, artillery systems, air defenses, and other military hardware to ensure that despite being a significantly smaller nation, it's still able to go toe-to-toe with Russia should the need arise. It's also launched the exciting East Shield initiative, elevating the physical barriers and electronic warfare defenses along its eastern border with Belarus in order to make any invasion attempt an almost impossible challenge. Now it's going one step further. It intends to start work on a national anti-drone system within a matter of months, leveling up its defenses against the types of drones that Russia uses on a near-nightly basis to bombard towns and cities far and wide across Ukraine. It's worth noting that the European Union already unveiled plans to build a so-called drone wall to safeguard the continent's skies back in mid-October. Officially entitled the European Drone Defensive Initiative, the wall is just one part of Europe's 5-year defense roadmap. It's set to include a continent-wide network of sensors, jamming systems, and anti-drone weaponry that can detect and neutralize hostile drones before they even enter EU airspace. Announcing the plan, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen stated, "There is no time to waste. We must heed the call of our Baltic friends and build a drone wall. This is not an abstract ambition. It's the bedrock of credible defense, a European capability developed together, deployed together, and sustained together that can respond in real time. One that leaves no ambiguity as to our intentions. Europe will defend every inch of its territory." Work on this project is set to start as soon as the first quarter of 2026, with plans to be fully functional by the end of 2027 and a firm deadline for completion by the end of 2028. Its announcement came in the wake of multiple Russian incursions into EU airspace, with drones and even fighter jets crossing over the borders of several member nations, including Poland, Estonia, and Romania, among others. Poland and the Baltic nations have expressed strong support for the plan, while other countries have taken more pessimistic, critical tones. French President Emmanuel Macron, for instance, claimed that the project was not totally feasible given the enormous length of Europe's eastern border, which extends for over 1,800 miles or 3,000 kilometers in total. Germany's defense minister Boris Pistorius also criticized the plan's presumed effectiveness, arguing that the EU had more pressing needs to focus on. Drone defense, of course, but not by a drone wall. Perhaps Poland has been paying attention to those criticisms, or maybe it has its own secret reservations about the initiative. Either way, it could have chosen to wait and see how well the wall worked once work began in early 2026. Instead, it's opted for a completely different approach, taking matters into its own hands by unveiling its very own anti-drone initiative. The country's deputy defense minister Cezary Tomczyk was the one to reveal Poland's bold plans in a recent interview with Bloomberg News. Commenting on the EU's drone wall, Tomczyk said, "We agree with the idea of strengthening the defense of the skies over the entire European Union and are ready to consider external proposals or solutions, but we give priority to national projects." Tomczyk went on to reveal that the Defense Ministry would soon announce investments in technologies to detect, jam, and neutralize hostile drones. He didn't go into details about which technologies in particular Poland will be working on or how much the government's investments will be worth, but he hoped to see Polish companies secure at least half of the contracts involved, and noted that these new drone defenses will be part of a broader air defense program to protect Poland's skies, infrastructure, and population from enemy invaders. He went on to note that the EU drone wall could perhaps serve as a complement to Poland's new system, stating, "If there are any external tools, we will use them to the fullest." As far as funding goes, Tomczyk noted that the Polish government plans to use the European Union's new SAFE defense loan program to finance its brand new drone shield. Again, he declined to provide further details regarding specific amounts, but the SAFE program, which stands for Security Action for Europe, was officially adopted by the Council of the European Union on May 27, 2025, and can provide up to 150 billion euros in competitively priced, long-maturity loans to member states that request them. The loans are aimed at financing urgent and large-scale procurement projects that are deemed critical for the continent's security, and given that Poland sits effectively at the front lines of Europe, sharing borders with Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, it is entitled to the largest amount of the 150 billion total. Its allocation is just under 44 billion euros to be precise. That's significantly more than any other nation. The Baltic nations, for example, have been allocated between 2.6 and 6.3 billion euros, while Romania's allocation is over 16.6 billion euros. Evidently, Poland intends to use that money to maximum effect, doing everything it can to make its borders impenetrable and its airspace as secure as possible. In addition, Warsaw does not want to waste any time whatsoever when it comes to developing and deploying its new drone defenses. According to Tomczyk, the government hopes to have the system's initial capabilities up and running within 3 months of these announcements. The full anti-drone system, meanwhile, should be completed within just 2 years. So, as long as Poland sticks to its schedule, it should have at least partial defenses operational by the start of 2026, with additional systems in place as the year progresses and into 2027. Since the deputy minister has been somewhat secretive for the time being, we don't know much about the new system. However, Tomczyk did hint that it will be a multi-layered defense network consisting of various tools to first detect and identify drones, then eliminate them. A counter-drone weapon must be comprehensive. It should consist of various sensors and effectors operating simultaneously, first detecting and identifying objects and then neutralizing them. He went on to confirm that Poland's new anti-drone initiative would be another layer in the country's rapidly evolving and increasingly complex air defense network, which already includes long and medium-range systems to strike back at any incoming helicopters, drones, jets, and even cruise missiles. What's more, Poland isn't just upping the game when it comes to defending against drones, it's also investing in building a drone army of its own that it can use for counter-operations against any invading forces. Back in July, the Polish Defense Ministry announced that it would be spending 200 million zloty, $54.2 million, by the end of 2025 on combat and training grounds. As Tomczyk notes, the way in which both Russians and Ukrainians are using unmanned weapon systems today shows that strengthening our capabilities in this area must be a priority in all spheres of activity, in the air, on land, and at sea. Clearly, Poland has no plans to stand still, watch what happens and hope the situation in Europe somehow improves. It's preparing for the worst-case scenario, and it's right to do so. Russia's aggression shows no signs of easing up as the country continues to hammer Ukraine daily with drones, missiles, and assault squads. While a direct attack on a NATO nation would be a major escalation, it's certainly not beyond the realms of credibility, and the Kremlin has been poking and prodding at Europe's eastern border for quite some time now. The drone incursion into Poland back in September was arguably the biggest and most worrying example of this, as approximately 19 to 23 drones traveled all the way across Ukraine and onward into Polish airspace. Poland and several of its NATO allies responded rapidly, scrambling fighter jets to track and shoot down some of the drones, but the response wasn't exactly the most efficient. For starters, only 4 of the drones were taken out with the aid of expensive interceptor missiles. There was also some unnecessary collateral damage as one missile, an AIM-120 AMRAAM that was fired by a Polish F-16 fighter, even ended up missing its target and crash landing on a residential building, destroying the roof of the property but, fortunately, not exploding on impact. The incident exposed clear gaps in Poland's air defenses, but the country and its allies have since taken numerous steps to remedy those issues. Poland has ramped up work on its East Shield National Defense Initiative, for example, which was launched by the country's government back in 2024 in response to rising signs of aggression from Russia and Belarus. By far, one of the biggest and most significant investments in national security and border defense in Poland since the days of the Second World War, the East Shield will have cost around $2.55 billion by the time all necessary work has been completed. It aims to bolster the country's border security through physical barriers and infrastructure construction, as well as anti-tank obstacles, minefields, fences, bunkers, and bridges, as well as electronic warfare and surveillance systems including anti-drone networks, radar stations, and AI-powered early warning systems that will scan the border territories and surrounding landscapes for any signs of an attack or invasion, issuing immediate alerts so that Poland can scramble jets, activate air defenses, and prepare to defend itself. Poland also stands to benefit from NATO's Operation Eastern Sentry, which was launched on September 12th of this year, only 2 days after the Russian drone incursion into Poland. The purpose of this initiative is to increase NATO's defensive capacities in the air, at sea, and on the ground, all along the eastern flank of Europe, ensuring that the country is better prepared to handle any future Russian drone, jet, or missile incursions or attacks from any other hostile nation. Numerous nations from across the alliance pledged assets to the cause, with 2 F-16s and an anti-warfare frigate from Denmark, 3 Rafale fighter jets from France, 4 Eurofighters from Germany, and so on. Nations also agreed to essentially share responsibility for defending the airspace of nations along the eastern border, rather than simply relying on each country to take singular responsibility for its airspace. Announcing this initiative, NATO's Secretary-General Mark Rutte said, "Russia's recklessness in the air along our eastern flank is increasing in frequency. We have seen drones violate our airspace in Romania, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Whether intentional or not, it's dangerous and unacceptable. We are prepared and ready to defend every inch of Allied territory. We stood up Baltic Sentry at the beginning of the year to help safeguard critical infrastructure from reckless behavior in the Baltic Sea. And today, General Grinkovich and I are here to announce that NATO is launching Eastern Sentry to bolster our posture even further along our eastern flank." East Shield and Eastern Sentry combined should make a world of difference to Poland's border, and with the European Drone Defense Initiative also set to roll out in 2026, Moscow will want to think twice about any attempted attack or incursion on Polish soil. But Warsaw's new drone defense network could be the most impressive and important addition to the lot. It's clear that drones are set to dominate warfare for the foreseeable future. That's been proven beyond any shadow of doubt in Ukraine, where the war rapidly transitioned from traditional battle tanks in its early stages to drone swarms and precision strikes as the months and years went by. These days, Russia regularly sends hundreds of drones into Ukraine in the span of a single night, bombarding numerous locations all over the country. It's also built entirely new drone factories and dedicated huge amounts of money and resources in order to churn out thousands of drones every month. The Kremlin is also investing in more advanced drone technology like AI-powered units that can fly autonomously to a pre-programmed destination without the need for a human pilot to operate them, or other drones that are impervious to existing electronic warfare systems. Kyiv's forces have had to learn to cope with all of that. Through domestic innovation and support from its allies across the globe, Ukraine has developed one of the most sophisticated layered air defense networks the world has ever seen, reaching a point where it's now able to consistently take out around 80% of the drones sent its way by the Kremlin's forces. Most other countries around the world simply do not have those sorts of defenses, nor do they have the type of first-hand experience that Ukraine has. So if a big Russian drone swarm came their way, many nations, even those that rank among the strongest militaries in the world, would struggle to withstand it without suffering at least some damage and casualties. Poland knows this. It got a small taste of what Russian drones can do back in September, and it struggled to respond with even a fraction of the efficiency and mastery that Ukraine does. But it's learning from that experience. It's taking clear, confident, and decisive steps to ensure that if Russia's drones cross the border again, they'll be dealt with much more swiftly than they were last time. It's following Ukraine's example, building a complex, layered defense system bit by bit integrating radars, surveillance systems, early warning, air defenses, interceptors, reconnaissance drones, sensors, and so much more. In doing so, Poland is quickly becoming one of the strongest military forces in Europe and one of the best prepared for war. While others dawdle and hesitate, Poland takes action. It's massively increased defense spending since the war began, ordered world-leading tanks from nations like the US, Germany, and South Korea, invested heavily in additional equipment like artillery systems to bombard any invading enemy forces and fighter jets to patrol its skies, and even put plans in place for a new conscription program that should see all able-bodied Polish men undergo mandatory military training. Thanks to this, its ground and air forces are more formidable than ever before, and its army is set to scale up in the months to come, with increasing numbers of both active duty personnel and trained reservists ready to serve their country should they be required. So not only will Poland soon have an array of new systems in place to spot and shoot down Russian drones, but it will also have an army strong enough not just to withstand an invasion, but destroy any enemy force that dares to threaten its soil or sovereignty. You can learn much more about how Poland is preparing for war with Russia in this video, which delves into the many exciting acquisitions Warsaw's military has been making in recent times, or for a closer look at how war between Poland and Russia might break out sooner than expected, watch this video, providing an in-depth look at the rising tensions along the Polish border. Be sure to subscribe to our channel too so you can enjoy more insightful military analysis and breaking news from Russia, Ukraine, Europe, and beyond. And thank you for watching.